We have a very busy day of wrestling news to get to, so let's jump in right now with an update on Money in the Bank. And the update on Money in the Bank starts with, to my knowledge, Zelina Vega being the first woman to qualify for Money in the Bank. And WWE did, in fact, split up the Money in the Bank qualifiers because Zelina Vega is the only one to qualify for the women's, yet there are now 5 people qualified for the men's, including Ricochet, Shinsuke Nakamura, Matt Riddle, and, of course, L.A. Knight. Yeah. And according to reports, I believe this report came from Worked Wrestling, and they have been extensively accurate with what they've been reporting over the last couple of months. And, the fact of the matter is, Worked Wrestling says that the current plan internally has been talked about for the last couple of months is that L.A. Knight is still the favorite to win the Money in the Bank pay-per-view event, and this comes along with the fact that WWE was extremely impressed with LA Knight's recent work and has been extremely impressed with LA Knight since he came to the main roster late last year. Basically, him just being LA Knight. And they've just been happy with him over the last couple of months. So the idea of LA Knight potentially being a WWE champion, honestly, I think is something that Sean Ricker was, it's something that Sean Ricker would have been thinking about back in the day, because initially, I think this is something that a lot of people don't know, but LA Knight was initially a part of WWE as a developmental talent back in the day, and was a part of early NXT, actually, as a young call-up. But the fact of the matter is, he made himself famous on Impact Wrestling. He made himself famous in the NWA, especially as LA Knight. He made himself famous in the NWA. But, the fact of the matter is, WWE is always the place. And I don't think anybody would have expected LA Knight to potentially be a WWE champion, but the idea of him being WWE champion would be incredible. I mean, hell, in my opinion, Shinsuke Nakamura winning the briefcase would be incredible. Riddle winning the briefcase would be, it would be nice, but I think a lot of people would prefer seeing LA Knight or Shinsuke Nakamura. But I do think that we at least have one, maybe 2 more people to be added to the Money in the Bank match. I would be surprised if Cody Rhodes is added to the Money in the Bank. I think that with it being in London, they may want to end Cody versus Brock at Money in the Bank. I think you could easily put Cody in Money in the Bank and have Brock cost him Money in the Bank, leading to the blow-off at SummerSlam, because, I don't know about you, but they need to have something big at SummerSlam, and it can't just be whatever happens with the Bloodline, because you got to figure that maybe the Usos versus Roman Reigns in some form would happen at at SummerSlam and not at Money in the Bank. But with that being said, speaking of Roman Reigns, WWE revealed a new undisputed world championship on SmackDown last night, and it leads to the question of what's going to happen with the undisputed champion, with the Universal and WWE championships. I think that WWE would be making a big mistake if they chose to keep the undisputed champion, the Universal title, and get rid of the lineage or halt the lineage of the WWE Championship, I think it would be a massive mistake because the WWE Championship is the WWE title. The Universal title should, and nobody would care if the Universal title was retired. People would care if the WWE title was retired. That's the main thing, in my opinion. That's the main thing, in my opinion. And I think that anybody who disagrees with that completely is ignoring the fact that the Universal title is not the one with the history tied to WWE. The world title is the one with the history. The WWE title is the one tied with the history to WWE. And the one that people would actually care about is if WWE got rid of or retired, even if it was just temporarily. But notice how it's not the Undisputed Universal Championship anymore. It's the Undisputed WWE Championship. I mean, it's just a WWE Undisputed Championship. We have questions. Rightfully so, we have questions. Speaking of SmackDown, though, as the Usos said on SmackDown, specifically after Jimmy said on SmackDown, it is coming off the super kick heard around the world. It was the question of what happens next with the Bloodline, and it's pretty obvious to me and everybody else that the Usos have been excommunicated from the Bloodline, and Solo Sikoa is still siding with the tribal chief, Roman Reigns. He is still siding with his tribal chief against his brothers. So now the interesting question is, what happens next between Solo and his brothers? What happens next between Roman and the Usos? What happens next with the Bloodline? That is the question that I think everybody wants to know. That is the question that everybody's going to be asking. And that is the question that I think everybody is curious about. What happens next with the Bloodline and the Usos after Solo sided with Roman and not the Usos? Also, before we go, I just want to mention something that I don't know if people are aware of, but there are clauses in WWE's contracts to run arenas that AEW cannot run the same arena within weeks before or after an event, because it would negatively affect WWE in those particular venues if AEW ran within a certain amount of time before or after WWE, because people would choose not to go to WWE's show and go to AEW's show. Honestly, this is not bad business practices by WWE. It is not unethical from WWE. It is not a negative thing from WWE. It is a smart business decision from WWE, because AEW should do the same thing. And if AEW is not doing the same thing, that's their fault. But also WWE would not go to the same venue before AEW, because they know it would negatively affect them just as much as it would negatively affect AEW. It's like if WWE went to the Crypto.com arena in Los Angeles, and AEW then went a few weeks after to the same venue, it wouldn't draw as well. Especially in California, you don't need to go to the same venue. Or if WWE goes to and do a house show at the Garden and then AEW brings Dynamite to the Garden, it wouldn't draw as well because, number one, the Garden is WWE's home base, just like Florida's AEW's, but there are so many arenas and other venues, you don't need to go to the same venue, especially in New York. I'm not saying AEW can't run the same market. Like, if WWE wants to run a house show in the Garden and AEW wants to run Barclays Center, or the Coliseum, or UBS Arena, or the Prudential Center, go for it. Go for it. You don't need to run the same venue. But, it's known and common in other aspects of, entertainment, but it's just that people may have a problem with it because it's WWE. and they're negatively affecting AEW, it's like, I'll point it out. WWE never goes to Arthur Ashe Stadium. AEW has made Arthur Ashe Stadium their venue. So if WWE was to run UBS Arena or do a house show in the Garden at that time, it would not negatively affect AEW. It would not negatively affect WWE because they're in two different venues. And also, AEW is never going to run the Garden and WWE is never going to run Arthur Ashe Stadium. You know what I mean? WWE in Arthur Ashe Stadium is not somewhere new. That tennis stadium has been there for 50 years or however long it's been there. You know, WWE has never run a show at Arthur Ashe Stadium. I think partially because the retractable roof on Arthur Ashe Stadium is something that is only a couple of years old. But also, it's possible WWE has never wanted to run a show there because of the poor parking, because of questions with parking, because of just not really being aware that maybe that is a venue worth running a wrestling show at. But in my opinion, it's not unethical, and I'm not just saying it being a WWE mark, I'm saying it because it's proper business practice that is acceptable in other aspects, specifically with concerts. But either way, I also just wanted to wish nothing but the best to Braun Strowman, who is set to undergo neck fusion surgery. As we found out a couple days ago that Braun was going to be out with an undisclosed injury, so now we know it's neck fusion surgery, and hope for the best from Braun Strowman, or to Braun Strowman, as we wrap up this news video, and I see you in the next one.